Shout out to G-Man Boxing.
Alright people, Hughie Fury stops Christian Hammer after 5 rounds, one-sided rounds. Corner pulled him out in the 6th round, citing a bicep injury. I wonder how legit that is, but we won't talk about that. We'll talk about the fight. This was a lot more interesting, a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be. I really did think this fight would be stinker. I thought that both guys are quite negative. Hughie Fury is not as negative as Hammer can be, but Hammer in his over the last few years really, pretty much, he went on a good run in 2017. He beat Tepa, beat David Price. I think he might have beat someone else as well in the meantime. And he had a good little run. I think he was actually number 1 or number 2 of the WBO at the time. And then he kind of fought Povetkin in Russia towards the end of 2017, and since then it's just been downhill. And I still can't quite get over that Christian Hammer is only 34 years old. It seems like he's been around for ever. You know, it really, I always thought Hammer was closer to 40. So when I see his age listed as 34, it's like, wow, he's been around for years. Like, I remember Hammer when he got stopped by Vakif all those years ago. It was 10 years ago. He was in much better shape back then. But let's talk about this fight. So Hughie Fury came out switching. So he was switching from southpaw to orthodox, but he was definitely looking to engage a lot more than we're used to seeing him. You know, we did see that in his previous fight against Marius Vak, that he was looking to engage a lot more. He really did put it on Marius Vak. Marius Vak, we know, is very durable, but he definitely made an easier time of Vak than Dylan White did. And in this fight, again, he was trying to put his punches together. You know, he was having great success landing the uppercut on Christian Hammer. It's always been a good punch for Hughie Fury, the uppercut. I think back to his fight with Joseph Parker. Whenever Parker would come in on his attacks, Hughie Fury would actually sometimes counter with the uppercut and then move to the side. It's a very good little punch for Hughie Fury. His punching power is something that's been brought into question, and I think legitimately, because he never really seemed to. He stunned maybe Christian Hammer a few times in this fight, but he never really appeared to me to really buzz him significantly or hurt him. Now, Hammer has shown a decent chin in his career. He has been down a couple of times, noticeably against Tyson Fury. He was down a few times in that fight. He was down against David Price. He was actually ironed out by Marius Vak. That's the only real time Hammer's ever been ironed out, which was against Marius Vak in 2010, I think it was. So Hughie Fury landed a plenty on him, especially in the 5th round, landed a couple of right hands. Never really seemed to phase Christian Hammer. Christian Hammer was definitely a lot more, was he up for this? Well, he definitely tried a lot more than he did against Tony Yoka in his previous fight, because straight off the bat, Hammer was trying to swing and he was trying to throw. He did land a couple of shots on Hughie Fury, it has to be said. Hughie Fury has also shown a very good chin in his career, and you know, Hammer was never a devastating puncher anyway, even when he was in, you know, his best. So you're taking shots from Povetkin and Parker, I'm sure Hammer has nothing really to bother you for, and you can take them. So that was kind of how it went. Hughie Fury still sticking his jab. He still slaps a little bit with the jab, too much for my liking. You know, I've seen it a few times in this fight where he was throwing a couple of jabs at a time. Sometimes he was doubling up on the jab, but it was still a bit too slappy for my liking. I would like to see him really put more emphasis on the jab and, you know, really try and, you know, drive the jab into the opponent's face, as opposed to, you know, just a little paw. And, you know, that's all well and good if you're trying to confuse someone, but if you really are trying to work your way in, or you're trying to, you know, really hurt the opponent, you maybe want to put a bit more steam on it. It's worked for him in the past though, so maybe it's best. But again, the movement from Hughie Fury wasn't excessive. It's one complaint I've always had about him, is that he excessively moves. He's like Erislandy Lara of the heavyweight division, but he's not been doing that a lot lately. He's still moving, but that's part of his style. You know, he's quite good defensively, and well, he's definitely starting to insert himself a lot more. We've seen Hughie Fury do that, you know, where he's had like fights against guys like Sam Sexton, against that Canadian guy a few years ago, where he's looked good in that specific fight, and then the next fight he's just gone back to his old self. Whether it's a confidence issue, I don't know. I suspect that part of it might have been because I remember when he fought that Canadian guy, he looked good, blew him out, fought Sam Peters next fight, and Sam Peters is ancient, and he looked terrible in that fight. So he's a bit more consistent now in this, so hopefully we're seeing a much improved Hughie Fury. The Sky commentary team were mentioning the fact that Hughie Fury has lost to Povetkin, Pulev, Parker, that he was too young. That narrative has been thrown around so often. I mean, at the end of the day, Mike Tyson won the world title, won the heavyweight title when he was 20 years old. Floyd Patterson, 21. You know, plenty of others have won it younger than that. AJ, how old was he? He wasn't much older than Hughie Fury is now. But if you're good enough, you can do it. And I just think Hughie Fury, maybe he has a bit more levels than I thought he did. But do I think I would put him in with the kind of, the major guys? Do I think he'd beat any of them? He might offset a few. He might be fiddly for some of them. But guys, guys like, well, he's not going to fight Tyson. But guys like AJ, Usyk, no. Dylan White, probably not either. Would he beat guys like Frank Sanchez? Kind of guys like that, your Joe Joyces? I sure as hell wouldn't pick him. But maybe there's more to come from Hughie Fury. I don't know. We need to watch this space. He definitely seems to have filled out a lot more. Go back about 2 years ago, he was in the 2 teens. Now he's in the 240s. Definitely looks a lot more. He looks to be filled out a lot more, and it looks to suit him more coming in at this weight than it did. Because he looked to me, I don't want to sound different, but he almost looked sick. If you get me, when he was going into the 2 teens, he almost looked unnaturally light. That it was really taking something away from him. He didn't look good at all in terms of his appearance physically, and I don't mean that in the sense of he just looked a bit drawn when he was weighing that much. And now he's in the 240s, he looks to be a bit more there. So watch the space for Hughie Fury. It was a good little scrap. I didn't think it would be. Done a better job on Hammer than Tony Oka did, saying that Hammer gave him more opportunities. But nevertheless, you got to get rid of the man, and Hughie Fury did that. Big up to him. We'll see how this goes. So, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, smash the like button. If you did, subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I'll talk to you in a wee bit, people. Peace.